2.5 years ago, I did my first ever YouTube live where I premiered the Foxalien Masuter Pro and got it all assembled. Now that machine went on to sell extremely well and turned out to be really popular. So naturally, I was really excited to get the Masuter 3S into the workshop. Now this has a whole bunch of upgrades going on it, and it's only right I share them with you. So let's talk about some of the key features or the upgrades to this machine. Now the most obvious thing is these much larger, more powerful NEMA 23 stepper motors, and I'll cover these in detail throughout the video. But the other power upgrade that you can't actually see here is this. The 400 watt spindle. Now the original on the Masuter Pro was a 60 watt, so it is quite a jump up to this. Now in terms of what this is capable of, something like softwood, you'll cut 2.5 millimeters per pass at 2000 millimeters per minute with something like a 1/8 bit. So pretty powerful to get most people started. Now ultimately, as usual, I always upgrade to a trim router for the extra power and speed. Now when I say speed, these are typically limited to around 10,000 to 12,000 RPM, whereas something like the trim routers, these will do 10,000 to 30,000 RPM. So there's quite a bit of difference in terms of the RPM range. And ultimately, whilst this is great to get you started and more than enough power for most people, to really start to utilize these stepper motors, you will need more power than this. They do supply you with the 65mm holder to take your average trim routers such as the Makitas, the Bowers, those type of things, and Foxalien even make their own as well. And upgrading is not just about speed and power, it's also about quality of cut. The shafts on things like trim routers and VFD spindles, they are typically much stronger and therefore going to give it much more support whenever it is cutting through material. The rubber V-wheels have completely gone. These have been replaced by stainless steel wheels on stainless steel rods. Now the big advantage there is wear and tear and flat spots. Obviously stainless steel is going to last much longer, and the flat spots that used to generate when your machine wasn't running and could cause juddering, they're also going to be eliminated with the stainless steel upgrades that they've made. Now the eccentric nuts originally fitted to the Masuter Pro were a good upgrade, but there are new ones on this that are ultimately stronger and allow it to be held in position even better. They've been used on the XE before, so they are tried and tested. One thing that Foxalien do need to do though is provide customers with the tool to tighten these. You can awkwardly do it by crossing over a couple of Allen keys, but an actual dedicated tool for doing this would be much better. The dust guards have been modified and improved. Instead of just coming up to a shallow height, they now come up much higher and wrap over the actual axis itself, covering both sides of the Y axis, and ultimately obviously just protecting your rails from all that dust and debris that can build up. Whilst it's a slightly minor thing, the positioning of the pulley wheels on all of the different drive belts have been repositioned, and this gives the teeth on the wheels more grip against the belt, just helping to support obviously the extra power of these stepper motors. The work light has been upgraded. Now I really did enjoy the light on the Masuter Pro, but to be honest with you, I don't know many people who didn't end up breaking that light because the fixing for it was quite weak. The new one is much more sturdy, it is made out of metal and obviously just going to be a lot better for running on a CNC machine. The linear rails and lead screw on the Z assembly have also been upgraded, just meaning that it runs even smoother and more precise. Now one thing I disliked about the original Masuter Pro that I think I've pointed out on videos before is that the control box sat right here at the front of the machine. Not only did it intrude on your work area as such, it was also prone to sucking in dust because of how close it actually was to the machine itself. So what they have done now is allowed the control box to be separate, so you can have it on the left, on the right, ultimately giving you much more flexibility. It is a bigger control box as well, but obviously that needed to happen because of things like the larger stepper motors. There are also some nice upgrades on it as well. One thing that people do all the time is catch the emergency stop button by mistake, and it locks down in position, and when they can't get the machine to run, they don't know why. The new emergency stop, you press it down, it will automatically release, although it still sends the emergency stop signal. So it just cuts out that issue of people triggering it without realising. The work area for the machine is advertised at 400 by 400, which I think is 15 3/4 inches, but actually it's closer to 420 by 420 or 16.5 inches. Now the reason that makes a big difference if your work area is only 400 millimeters wide or 400 millimeters deep, you're never going to be able to cut out that maximum size. So it's always going to be something like 390 is the biggest you can cut. So just having that extra 10 millimeters or so each side means you can actually cut up to 400 millimeters. So minor thing there, but it does make a big difference in terms of what you can then get out of your machine. And in terms of the clearance of the machine, or the thickest piece of material you can put in there, I think this is 100 millimeters or 4 inches. So again, a good amount of depth to get some thick material in there if that is what you need to machine. And that clearance can actually be very useful when trying to use something like a 4th axis roller for cylindrical objects, which Foxalien also sell for this machine. Now, we just mentioned about the rotary roller that is available for this machine, so it's worth talking about some of the other accessories. Now, things such as the Foxalien dust shoe, the vacuum, obviously they're all going to integrate seamlessly with this. There is also an extension kit available for this machine, taking it from 400 wide to 800 wide. Obviously that's going to give you a really big cutting area, especially for things like making signage. You're just going to have that extra width which really comes in use. Now, a lot of the upgrades have clearly been targeted at giving this machine more power, so it's also worth pointing out that the frame has been reinforced to do this. The extrusion is thicker, the plates for holding it all together are also thicker. Just little bits like joining bars underneath the spoil board to stop that sagging and compressing. So not only have they upgraded individual components on the machine, they have generally reinforced and strengthened everything about it. So let's have a little bit of fun. I'm going to predict in the first 15 comments someone's going to start complaining about belt driven CNC machines, and that's okay. It just means that this is not the one for you. However, I can promise this is actually going to make a lot of people very happy. Now, I've discussed the differences between lead screw and belt driven on this channel before, and ultimately the big advantage to belt driven is they can accelerate much quicker. That really comes into play when you want to do something like lasering. You can add a laser attachment to this machine and sort of get a really great hybrid machine. You're going to have the acceleration to get good results from the laser. You're also going to have enough power in those motors to drive that router through pretty much any material that you want. So if you're looking to do a little bit of both, then this is really going to be a great setup for you. So I think that covers most of the upgrades. Let's come back and talk about these NEMA 23 stepper motors in a bit more detail. Now, not only are they stronger than the previous ones, which are only 17s, they are closed loop motors as well. Now, I've covered this off in previous videos, but if you're not familiar with the difference, basically an open loop motor, if you tell it to move 3 inches, it will try and do that. It may think that it's done that, but if it's missed some steps, well, it doesn't actually know. On a closed loop system, there is a feedback going on. So if you tell it to move a certain distance, it's going to do everything that it can to achieve that distance, and ultimately that results in getting less missteps. So the chance of you having mistakes with closed loop motors versus open loop motors is a lot less with these. Now, one of the downsides to the original Masuter Pro is the smaller motors didn't have much holding power. What I mean by that is it was very easy to actually pull the machine about even when it was turned on. Now watch this, I've deliberately left that light in place. I'm going to try and move this out of position. Watch how much that wobbles, and this will not miss a step. I can literally pull this off the bed and it is locked in position. So nice upgrade, as I mentioned, been used before on other Foxalien machines, but one thing I would like to see in the future is more feedback from these motors to the control board. Now, what I mean by this is one of the advantages to a closed loop stepper system is it should be able to report back when there has been too much resistance. Hypothetically, let's say you hit a clamp whilst you are machining. With how powerful these are, it will just basically try to push through that clamp and ultimately damage the clamp or damage your machine. Now, what should happen is it should report back and go, "Ooh, that's a bit too much resistance. Let's pause the job and make sure everything's okay." So that is one of the good things that should happen with a closed loop system, and it'd be nice to see that on some future machines. Now, one thing I am a little bit nervous of is the thickness of the belts. Now, these are the same thickness belts that were used on the original Masuter Pro, and whilst I haven't actually had any issues with this machine so far in all the testing that I've been doing, I am slightly cautious that with the extra power of these machines, those belts might be a little bit too thin. I suppose only time is going to tell, but as I say, so far no issues, just something that's in the back of my mind. So with all of those upgrades, what is this capable of cutting? Now take into account, I am referencing using a trim router or an upgraded spindle because you need that extra power to get the most out of these stepper motors. But it's going to do any type of wood that you throw at it, softwood, hardwood, the whole range, it is absolutely fine. Plastics, acrylics, composites, again, it's going to do all of those with ease. Carbon fibre, yes, just make sure you're doing it in some sort of water bath to be safe. The big question, metal. Yes, it will machine metal. Now I've only been doing aluminium and brass on this for some testing. It cut it absolutely fine. I think aluminium it was doing at 1mm depth of cut at 1500 millimeters per minute, and again it was doing that absolutely fine. It could probably be pushed even harder. One thing I always have to say though is this is not a dedicated metal milling machine. If you're looking to do metal most of the time, 80, 90, 100% of the time, this is not for you. This is more for those people wanting to do acrylics, wood, plastics, those type of things with a little bit of metal thrown in there. So that is the balance that we are talking. Yes, it can do some metal, but it is not its primary purpose. So that is my overview of the Foxalien Masuter 3S and all the upgrades that go along with it. Now I can genuinely say this machine didn't skip a single step no matter what test I have done with it. Even when I did that shaking, nothing moved. It just really goes to show that those upgraded stepper motors have lifted the performance of this machine significantly. Now if you are thinking of buying one of these, there will be some links in the description area below. They always take you to the best available prices for any machine that you see on my channel. And obviously if you've got questions about it, comment down below and I'll get back to everybody as quick as I possibly can. I hope you found the video useful. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and make sure you do subscribe. Thank you very much for watching, and final thanks as always goes to my patrons. I will see you all on the next episode.